All right, welcome everybody to this episode of Amazon Data Dudes. We are very excited today. I'm one of your hosts, Will Christensen, and we have Brandon Checketts here. Say hello.
Hey, how's it going?
And Jordan Checketts as well.
Hey, everybody.
Awesome. And today we have a special guest. We have Alexi Bell. Alexi actually works at an Amazon advertising agency, happens to be the very own Seller Labs advertising agency. I'm going to let her introduce a little bit more about herself, but she's got some really cool experience. She's going to talk a little bit about that today on our episode of Amazon Data Dudes.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Alexi Bell. I'm an account director at Seller Labs. I've been working at Amazon the last couple of years and have spent thousands and thousands of hours in Amazon. I wish I could count that high. And just seeing how much Amazon changes over the last, especially year and a half, has been wild. And just when we pull data one time, then we pull it again, and it continues to change and alter. And so allowing us to have as consistent of data as possible for our clients and for ourselves to make the best decisions when it comes to advertising is critical. And it's not consistent with Amazon. So I would love to see consistent numbers and be able to provide the best data for our clients to make those decisions.
So correct me if I'm wrong, as you said thousands and thousands of hours, you mean like in Seller Central?
Oh yeah.
Holy cow. I can honestly say that, I mean, thousands, I don't know about you, but that's not a place that I live, breathe, eat, and sleep. I spend a little more time in the code. Alexi, that is amazing. So today, the thing we want to talk about is a little bit about the data that's coming from the different systems and the consistency. And I'm actually going to pass the baton over here. I have a data expert on Amazon. This is someone who has been dealing with Amazon data since, before many Amazon sellers were born. So Brandon, tell us a little bit more about Amazon data and what you've seen over the years.
You make me sound really old when you say it like that, but I don't know if I've been doing it since before people were born. I've been looking at Amazon data for Seller Labs for over 10 years though, and ingesting a lot of that data, putting it in our own databases and trying to make sense out of it. But one of the things I think is useful is to think about the data we see in Seller Central is like, where is it coming from and what's their purpose in showing it to you? Because there is actually opinions in a lot of those different screens. Like some of them are made to demonstrate financial accuracy, and some of them are made to show you like just general trends and stuff like that. So it kind of helps to understand on Amazon's side where the data is coming from and maybe how it got there.
Got it. And so over time, as that data is kind of formed and fashioned and moved, you've seen different reports released via the API. You've seen different reports via the UX UI. So that's the programmatic way, the API, and the front end platform that they're actually showing you in Seller Central. Are you seeing Amazon? Are they constantly trying to give you the best data? What's been your opinion on how they handle it?
Amazon is different than most other systems that we talk with. In most other systems, if you're talking about a Shopify or somebody, like there is one source of truth, and it's the accuracy. It's accurate, and no matter how you look at it, the numbers still add up, and it doesn't matter. Like there's one database or one system that tells you the truth. And Amazon is very much not that way. If you think about how Amazon is structured from a corporate standpoint and from a team standpoint, like they have this concept of 2-person teams, and one team doesn't know what the other person's doing. And so like their data is fragmented and skewed and segmented in all these different ways. And it's kind of a byproduct of how their organization is run as well. So there is, from a seller's perspective, there is no source of this is the accurate source of all orders, for example, that have ever been placed on the platform.
So what you're saying is, the left hand doesn't necessarily know what the right hand is doing. And that is part of Amazon's competitive advantage, right? They're constantly trying to innovate and grow and change. And some of that has really served Jeff Bezos. And we've seen some cool things with that, but here's a byproduct, right? That the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. And so, this team over here doesn't realize they've messed up the data from over here, is what you're saying.
And a lot of times it's good enough, right? So it's good enough to demonstrate what they need. So there's no need to go back and figure it out. We'll point out an example, I think, today that shows pretty clearly what's going on with that. or stuff changes, legal things happen, orders are deleted, canceled, returns, whatever. One of these screens, one of the data from one of these might have been taken at one point and then later changed. Then, so what is true? That kind of varies depending on who you're talking to.
Got
and
it.
in Amazon terms, like what screen you're looking at.
So I
Yeah.
want to take, I'm actually going right to you, Jordan. So Jordan, I want your take on this as an Amazon seller. So one, I want to know, how many years have you been selling? If you were to just throw out a rough number of units that you've sold in the entirety of everything that's there, I wonder if you even have that number in the back of your mind. Like what are we talking here? How experienced a seller are you, and what have you seen when it comes to this Amazon data?
Yeah. So I've been selling on Amazon since 2009. So this is before FBA. This is before Amazon advertising. Man, it used to be so easy to create an Amazon account. You throw it up there and it was easy to calculate your money, right? It's like, oh, here's the Amazon fee. Here's my cost of goods sold. I'm going to sell it at this price. I know I make money. Margins were much healthier back then. Obviously, competition's good for the economy, but sometimes it's hard on us as sellers. In that, so since 2009, I've probably sold, I would guess, close to 10 million units in that time. So a lot of inventory. I mean, every year it's progressing so quickly, right? Like crazy quickly. And it's like margins are slimmer than ever. Amazon advertising came out and so many people started diving into it because they were told, hey, you got to advertise. They didn't know what they were doing. So they were just throwing stupid amounts of money at Amazon advertising. And it made it really hard for people who did know what they were doing to compete. And so before you know it, you went from 30-40% profit margins to like some people were losing money on inventory and they didn't even know it. And so, I mean, our standard profit margin right now is probably about anywhere from 7 to 10%, depending on the SKU. That's after Amazon advertising and everything. And so profit margins aren't what they used to be. The numbers, in my opinion, are more important than ever. And, you know, back in the day, you know, if Amazon's data had a discrepancy of 2 or 3%, it wasn't a big deal. Well, when your profit margins are 7%, 2 or 3% is a big deal. And
2 or 3% is 50% of your profit margin.
It's a huge deal, right? And so the data, needing the data to be accurate, in my opinion, is more important than ever because we are dealing with such a competitive industry, and margins are competitive, and you have to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you're not going to last long.
So Jordan, have you seen discrepancy? Like you've looked at 2 different places in Seller Central and you've seen that. So we have an example we're going to share today. Jordan, in the past, I mean, this has been something you've seen as well.
Yeah. I mean, tons of discrepancies. Occasionally Amazon will come out with a new report, right? So you pull the new report and you're like, that doesn't look right. And you compare it to another report and you're like, hey, look, these 2 reports from Amazon are 5% different. Like these numbers should be the same, but they're not. And I think it goes, I've never heard it explained as well as what Brandon said, how it's just like, you know, you kind of got this left and this right hand. And I think they're trying to solve similar things, but they're going about it different ways in some situations. And so the numbers are slightly different.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I see discrepancies literally every day. Like you pull reports, there's discrepancies.
So
most people have grown accustomed to being off, right? As long as we're in the ballpark. But that's kind of how we got to this conversation, is what 2% used to be acceptable, but 2% off now can be significant. So we want to make sure we're as accurate as possible.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So we're going to show an example, but the last thing I want to do is this across the board? And I want Alexi and Jordan to weigh in here. Across the board, like advertising reports, order reports, you know, business by the traffic reports. What are we talking about, Alexi? What do you see?
I'd say the most consistent thing is it consistently being off. I'd say is probably the best way to put it. I think it's even more sometimes when you pull an advertised report and the advertised sales are greater than the total sales during that time. That what I'd say is like the biggest inconsistency. And sometimes it's not, you know, that much off, but your total sales have to be bigger than your ad sales in that same time period. But then when you add in, you know, the attribution window and stuff and such with ads, then you get a much larger discrepancy than you would have thought. So if everything would look at the same window instead of 5 different 7-day, 14-day, 30-day, 60-day windows, I would think we'd have more consistency. But when you add in all those different windows, where is the consistency there?
Yeah. Yeah. So Jordan, would you say it's outside of advertising as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I've got 6 Amazon accounts, and a lot of the inconsistencies that we see are across the board, regardless of which Amazon account I'm in. Definitely, you go to your business reports within Seller Central, and those reports within business reports are usually pretty consistent one with another because there are a lot of reports there. But to Alexi's point, I agree. When you're comparing business reports to your advertising reports, that's where I see the largest discrepancies.
So you would say that it's probably very important to be strategic about, okay, so I'm seeing a discrepancy. Let's get some logic behind choosing which data point is going to be more accurate, because that should help you to make better decisions about your business, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay.
Well, and I love that Alexi talked about the time frames, right? Like advertising report has, a certain number of days you can pull reports, and it's like I get so frustrated because it's like I want to look at my last year's numbers, but I can't in advertising. So I can't condense all the data that I want to condense and pull the year over year trends like I want to, because I'm limited on the advertising side, but not on the business report side. That for me is consistently one of the most frustrating things to help, because I mean, there's seasonality to a lot of our products, and I'm sure pretty much every seller has some kind of seasonality, and it's like, month over month doesn't cut it a lot of times. You have to look at those year over year trends.
So Brandon, you've had people come to you with this problem over the years as you founded Seller Labs, and they were asking like, okay, what if we're going to take product data and store it for sellers? And we do that, by the way. Anybody who's watching this, if you're on Seller Labs Pro, we store your data for you. So anything where Amazon drops off and loses that, we've got that for you. We've got your back. When you store data like that, you want it to be as accurate as possible for these sellers. Brandon, what decisions, as the data architect, as the founder, as the lead programmer here at Seller Labs, what have you done what choices have you made to make that more accurate?
Sure. Well, we typically try to save as granular data as possible. So in some cases, and we're talking some specifics here, like the Amazon business report section is very summarized data. So it's pulling in data generally from across your entire account and showing you like a chart by day or chart by month. So that's very granular data. It's been summarized up into very, very large data. So we typically try to save as granular data as possible so that we can really debug in there and get details. So for instance, we save from the business report section, we save the child traffic, the page detail traffic by child ASIN report, which is the most detailed one. We can drill into any particular child SKU or parent SKU and give you traffic for that one. And so we try to pull in the most granular data possible, and then we can aggregate it back up to give you those reports at the high level.
Beautiful. So that granularity gives you more access and control and understanding of the data. But if you try to go back and compare it to Amazon Seller Central, you're going to see discrepancies. And you're going to be like, wait, does Seller Labs know what they're doing? And the answer to that is this episode of Amazon Data Dudes. We do know what we're doing, and we're trying to help you drill all the way down to that nitty gritty, so that when you look at the high level and the low level from the data imagine the amount of work you'd have to do. So Brandon, walk through, what does it look like in terms of us grabbing this data? Like what would an Amazon seller have to do manually in order to have the same data that we're getting, a seller who's not on Seller Labs?
Well, sure. I guess we actually pull in tons of data. So we pull in order data. So we pull all your orders, what date and time they shipped, the amounts of them, the products that were on them, the sale, like the price they sold for, the discounts that were on it. We pull in all that data. We also pull in from the financial data, all the individual financial transactions that come in with that. So we don't know how much went to product sales and to shipping and to Amazon fees and to FBA fees. Like we've got tons of detail there. And then we also pull in data similarly, some overlapping data from some of that is from we'll talk about the business report section, that child traffic report that I showed. We pull in that data as well because it has some data as far as like page views.
So we're talking like if someone were to manually go do this, we're probably talking like an hour or two every day of downloading and putting it into Excel folders or something. And then even then it would become, unruly and difficult to keep up on.
Yeah,
well,
certainly. Certainly you can
say,
follow it with Excel and folders on your disk, but we put it into a database that's much like structured and very easy to get at if you understand it.
Well, like not only that, but like not only is it easier, but like there are reports and numbers you can look at now that literally you can't if you're just relying on Amazon. Like you're so limited on some of your historical data in Amazon, but with Seller Labs, you keep the historical data, and now I can look at advertising spend over a year. Like that to me is one of the big advantages,
because it's automatically being captured, right? Like you're signed up, you're paying that monthly fee, and one of the things that's paying for is essentially an automated, totally automatic robot VA that's pulling in all this data, putting it into places where it's all sorted, and then we're being able to divulge that. And our new data warehouse product actually does some really cool stuff with that, and combining and making that available in a Google Sheet or in Google Data Studio. So Brandon, we've got an example here. I want you to dive right into that. Can you show us, and it's specifically around that exact report that Brandon was mentioning with the traffic and the child ASIN. Can you show us what we're looking at here in terms of some of our discrepancies that we've seen?
Absolutely. Let me put my shared screen here, go up. And I think I've got one on the screen here. This is one of the, well, I'll navigate back to here again. So I've gone up to here to the report section, to business reports. And this is one I think most people are familiar with, the sales and traffic report here. It shows you, I think the default view is to show you by day. I'm going to group it up by month and look at a longer term trend. So I kind of want to look at what Jordan was sort of talking about there as a longer term trend going back to, year over year or whatever. So this is a pretty common report I think most sellers are familiar with. So what I've done here, again, you saw me just do it. I went to the sales and traffic, made it the date range, go back a couple of years and grouped it by month. And so we can kind of see in here, ordered product sales, break that down, B2B, page, total order items, all these little details about it. But I think we can demonstrate what I'm talking about here, but just at the order product sales column. So let me go. So one of the things I wanted to do here, and I pointed out that Seller Labs, we download this detail page sales and traffic by child ASIN report. So this is the one that has the most granular data in it. So it's got things like at every SKU level, it's got, and I have to use their scroll bar here to go over. It's got the additional columns in it like sessions, page views, buy box percentage, and then all your conversion rates and stuff like that over here. So it's got more detail on this one than the other page has. So we essentially download that report every day. But to show you what we're talking about here, I'm going to go back to one of the months I had in here. I think we were looking at like January of 2021. If I go select that month.
And if you were to just look at it right there, you would just see the total aggregate. But if you go grab it now, okay, so is there a total at the bottom of this report? Can we just scroll down and see like a total for that month?
I wish there was. There's no total down here, and I'm convinced Amazon doesn't show you a total here because the numbers don't add up. But most all the other pages have got a total at the bottom.
So if you scroll to the right there, there's nothing there.
There's no further rows down here. There's no total on it. So in order to sum all this up, I have to actually go up here and download the reports.
Okay.
And so I'm going to download that, and then I'm going to open it in Excel here. All right, let's see. There we go. Open that in Excel. Get this screen. So if I show you the same report here, so that's the same time frame. And if I look at the number I was pointing at was the ordered product sales column. So you can see the total that we should have in there, according to the child traffic report, is $198,164.55.
Okay.
But if I hop back over to the Amazon sales and traffic report, if I look at the same time period for January, it's actually off by a pretty significant amount. It says $185,000, $344.49.
Comparing that's like $13,000. Yeah,
$14,000 off there. So $14,000 out of 200 is about 7% off or something.
Okay, so hold on. You said 7% off. Jordan, what did you say the profit margin was averaging right now?
Our average profit margins are 7 to 10%, depending on the SKU.
Crap.
So this is crazy because this is actually all just within the business reports section too. So most of the discrepancies I've noticed have been between business reports and your advertising reports, but this is still all just within business reports. This is supposed to be some of the more accurate data.
Jordan, I want you to imagine really quick that this is your account, and this, you look at this and it is off by that much. I mean, what do you do at that point in terms of like knowing, like how do you know what decisions to make?
Well, I mean, you can only make the decisions, you know, as well as the data that lead you to that decision. Like, I don't know how to phrase that better. That's not worded greatly, but like,
well,
yeah, this is hugely concerning to me.
So
to
let's
solidify these numbers or something. Let's say you were trying to predict your revenue for January of 2023, right? And you're looking at $185,000 here for this January and 100,000 here for this January. Like, well, what if this number was really 200 and it's showing 185? So if you're predicting how many units you need to buy or making decisions on that, then you're going to be undercutting yourself. You're not
short, yeah.
Many sales as you had last year, right? So you're not going to buy enough inventory. That's one way in which you might use that. But just using incorrect data means you make flawed decisions.
Beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you use data for everything, right? Like inventory forecasting, profitability. I'm sure I'm not the only seller where like you get to the end of the year and you feel like you've had a good year, and then your P&L statement is just like, oh, we broke even. Like,
how
you're like, okay, like
So,
and a lot of times you just don't know why, or so this is
Brandon,
interesting.
As the data expert here, which of these two reports would you choose to go off of, or would you advise Amazon sellers to focus on?
Well, so we've done some comparison on this. We dug into this one quite a lot, and we actually pulled in. So we actually have many sources of this order data. So we pull in the order data from the orders API, which is very similar to that the child report, and the numbers are much closer to the child traffic report than they are to the sales, the high level report. So
what you're saying is you've done the dirty work of connecting those dots, and you would recommend that report. Can you go back to that page to show us which one you're talking about?
Yes. Well, so we actually pull in data from many places. This one is the one that's the real data that we get from the orders API is very close match to this data.
Okay, so that data, and can you show us in Seller Central? Can you go to that page real quick?
That was this tab I had open here.
Okay,
yeah.
So what you're telling me is the best place to go at it is from here. So if I want to go compare any random month in the past, I have to go hit that button and download it and do, like, man, that sounds like a lot of work if you're not a Seller Labs customer.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we do in the background for you. So we download that report every single day, save it to our database, and then keep it for years. So
beautiful.
It's amazing. We work with multiple Amazon advertising execs who work in different sectors. I work with at least 3 myself, as well as many of other team members. And I just met with one last week, and I was like, hey, when is, this feature being added to this account? And they don't know anything about that feature that's rolled out in other accounts in different categories. So it's amazing that what we teach them, when really like they learn from us more than I feel like we learn from them, and they're not connected. Like, it's great to work with them and it's great to have someone on the inside, but then when something happens, they can move it up and like send it off to somebody else, but they can't actually help the seller if their account got something went wrong.
To be clear here, we're talking about an account rep at Amazon who works in the advertising section of what's there.
Yeah,
and they're not aware of.
Well, that's what I was talking about. Like, Amazon's a huge organization. Like, advertising is one big, huge business unit for them, and retail is another big, huge business unit. But the advertising people have probably never logged into Seller Central and seen any of the other screens besides the advertising screen in Seller Central.
Yeah.
So and they have no ability to click on and do anything there. They have to contact somebody in the entirely different division of the company to do anything.
So yeah,
there.
they operate as totally separate business units, which is
So
why
Lexi,
and it shows in their data.
Yeah, they're totally separate. So Lexi, I do have one other question for you. My question is this. So we got a lot of insight from Jordan. We talked to Brandon about the idea of like the data guru side of like, where do you compare all of that? I want to hear it from an agency. There are a lot of good people out there who are helping Amazon sellers on advertising inside of Seller Labs and outside, right? There's lots of good agencies out there that are helping Amazon sellers. What does it do for you when the Amazon data is wrong like that?
I guess a lack of better words, it sucks. Like, how do you make a decision for a client with what's best for the client, like to help them grow as a business, when you can't guarantee that this data is right? We can take what we know and we can look at, trends in the category. And I think that's the pro with working with an agency, is they work with so many different clients and they can align with those trends better. Like, oh, this is happening in multiple categories, or they do another supplements cleanup where they take care, they boot a bunch of supplement clients out at the same time. And we can see those trends. I think that's the pro with working with an agency. And we have better data than what a seller is going to be able to just pull on their own. So I think it's like, is it going to be perfect? No, but it's Amazon. So it's never going to be perfect, but it's as close to perfect as any agent
can make it.
I mean, in some cases, like the data would be in the agency's favor, right? So if we're in the example we were showing today, if you show last year was $185,000 when it was really 200, and you're showing you're comparing your year over year to what was the deflated number last year, the advertising agency looks better. But on the flip side, the data goes the opposite way just as many times, right? It makes the advertising agencies' efforts look less effective because Amazon data is skewed differently on some other report. So it just messes with all those metrics. As how are we doing? Like if you're not looking at it consistently, it's
Alexi, do you lose credibility when you throw Amazon data out there and you're like, hey, this is what it is, and then your client goes and checks it out and looks at it? Do they what do they usually do when they see that?
I think it is really easy to look at just that overview of month by month. And most sellers, if you explain to them the process and what reports you're downloading and show them these data discrepancies, they're going to lean on you. They're going to believe you. When we look at profitability at an ASIN level and see how much by each SKU are we spending on ads, how much are we returning, the only way to look at that is by child ASIN. So as a month on the whole, like looking at your profitability is, I think, so much more important and looking at that at the SKU level than it is. Then it gives you that big picture. Then you can, if you pull that profitability every month, you've done, it's added up for you. And so that's what we look at, is that profitability as accurate as it can be.
So Alexi, you were one of our first beta customers of the data warehouse tool. We've now automated a couple of reports that you were working on and doing manually. I mean, what would you say about having a tool that makes it so that you can get any data you want inside Amazon?
I'd say it's a lot of time back. I think I've spent a lot of time manually copying and pasting things, as I've, showed you all before, especially when it comes to the ad console, because there is no way to look back farther. So that time where we can just pull a report for a client, like as they're newly onboarded, that we can backfill, get it filled out, have it to them first day that they're active, I think is so essential when it would take months and hours to manually pull that data. I think the time we get back as an agency, the time that client now has all that data, they can take it on and make business decisions based on the data. I mean, it's hours back. So I'm very grateful for as much automation as we can get while also having the human touch, is I think what sets us apart.
Beautiful.
Well, I think it's hours, but it's also like, because you're able to make the decision so much quicker right out the gate, you're not missing out on opportunities, right? Like you're taking advantage of the opportunities quicker. So ultimately that's like a benefit on the other side as well. Not only does it save you money, but it brings in more money because you're making better decisions quicker.
Obviously, there was a piece of this episode that was about helping you understand who we are at Seller Labs and why we believe we have some really powerful data, helping you understand that we've done some of that dirty work and looked at it. And some of you may have been like, wow, what a sales pitch. What we're really trying to help you understand is we understand this data and we want you to learn how to use it in the best way possible. And we've done the dirty work for you. We've compared the different pieces. We've had hundreds of people point out the different discrepancies, and we've chosen the best source possible for every data point you're seeing inside Seller Labs. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah,
So,
we've gone back and forth and made changes on all this stuff, and this is the result of years of fine tuning and adjusting. So it's pretty good.
Beautiful. Well, awesome. That is it for this episode of Amazon Data Dudes. Alexi, thank you so much for coming today.
Thank you.
We really appreciate having you here. And Brandon, thanks for your expertise on the data side. And Jordan, thanks for your insight as a seller.